Namaste and greetings, and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I'm Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson, the founding minister and spiritual director. If you ever have questions about who I am, who we are, what we do, what is Spiritually Integrated Arts? What is a teaching center? What is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is metaphysical spirituality? What is New Thought? Science of Mind and Spirit? How do I become a member? How can I support, tithe, and donate? All of these questions and so many more. Send an email. You have two options. SIAADMIN, Spiritually Integrated Arts, admin at spirituallyintegratederarts.org, or spirituallyintegratederarts@gmail.com. Either of those will work. You can also visit our website, www.spirituallyintegratederarts.org. Now, you may be wondering, where else can I find and follow? There are several other social media platforms that you can also subscribe and follow. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel, where you can also find all of our Sunday messages and more. I look forward to hearing from you soon. I look forward to you being a part of this beloved community. Because we are a virtual community, it doesn't matter where in the world you are. This can also be your spiritual community, because you can have more than one. Anywhere that you feel supported, anywhere you are spiritually fed is home, is community, is relationship. So I look forward to dialoguing more, conversing more, getting to know you. Much love and appreciation. Live long and prosper. Chat with you soon. Take care. Hello and welcome. October. Wow. It's almost Halloween. And then Thanksgiving. And then Christmas. And then it's New Year's. Oh my. The paradox. Holiday. Oh. So today, guess what we're talking about? The paradox mindset. So anchor in, like really get settled, because just the idea of the paradox, the idea of where we're going to go with this, can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. Not saying that that's you. However, in the world in which we live, the collective consciousness does not like playing in the sandbox of paradox. We begin our playful, transformative exploration of this idea of paradoxes with some key definitions,
some key ideas of what paradox means, what it can mean, what it can look like as a practice. We're going to talk a little bit about the idea of the paradox mindset, quote unquote. We're going to talk about a philosopher who created or sort of condensed this idea of the paradox mindset. We're going to talk about how this paradox mindset deepens our own spirituality within the context of science of mind and spirit. And as we dive into this subject, we find that every answer leads yet to another question, as it should. Because getting to the final answer per se, we often stop and we no longer remain open at the top. So question becomes answer, answer becomes question, question becomes answer, question becomes question becomes question. Because many questions, there is no definitive answer. There is no definitive right way of looking at many, if not most things. Instead, we are invited to open ourselves up and to hold the space for many different ideas, complementary ideas, contradictory ideas, uncomfortable ideas, simply holding the space. And then we, as a result of holding a space, and then we move into a space where we are truly embracing the concept and embracing the energy of the paradox. And it creates a space for us to live greater, more expansive lives. Because rather than there being one way, we now see there are many ways to express this individualized expression that God is as us. Carl Jung says, the paradox is one of our most valued spiritual possessions. Only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life. Only the paradox comes anywhere near. He didn't say definitive answers come near. Only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life. Now, we can think of paradox, which we're going to get into later this month, the idea of yin and yang. Paradox, because people will refer to those as opposites, light and dark, opposites, masculine, feminine, male, female, positive, negative, opposites. They're not opposites, they're complements. That's paradox. And when we understand paradox, when we can balance yin, yang, then we come closer to this idea, the energy of embracing, the energy of embodying the fullness of life. So when you think of the word paradox, what comes to your mind? Generally speaking, the word paradox, as many of our words, comes from the Greek para, meaning contrary to, and doxa, meaning opinion. So the most basic way of thinking about paradox is someone's opinion, someone's thoughts are contrary to some other opinion or thoughts. In Latin, the term paradoxum means something that is seemingly absurd, yet actually true. Seemingly absurd, yet actually true. Brené Brown defines paradox as the appearance of contradiction between two related components. Now, we find paradox everywhere throughout our human experience. As I mentioned, light and dark, seeming opposites. North Pole, South Pole, seeming opposites. Positive energy on a battery, negative energy on a battery, or negative and positive in general, seemingly to be opposites. When someone says, you have to spend money to make money, that's a paradox. If you don't risk anything, you risk everything. Paradox. Less is more. The idea of a minimalistic lifestyle. Less is more. God is consciousness and matter simultaneously. And even the concept of, Bubba Gump would love the concept of jumbo shrimp. Paradox. Something that seems absurd, jumbo shrimp, and yet is actually true. Paradox. So we're invited to really step into the energy of this, because the human mind tends to focus on, and many people say it's designed to be either or. And yet we are changing through neuroplasticity to a concept of both and. We are moving from the ancestral idea way back when the ancestors needed to be able to quickly discern movement in the bush, and this is at a threat, what's going on. We are no longer threatened by the saber-toothed tiger. So we are in a space where the level of either or hypervigilance can be healed and transformed. Now, many of us, even in today's modern day, for a variety of reasons, still experience some form of hypervigilance. Even when we are evolving into the both and, there's still some aspect of. So being in the paradox gives us the opportunity to recognize that so that we can potentially heal that as well. But we can't heal it if we don't acknowledge it, if we're not aware of it. Breathe. Being able to, quote unquote, solve problems requires both and thinking. When Walt Disney wanted to create Disney World in a swamp, Florida, they had to come up with both and thinking. When the World Trade Center was being built, the foundation, they were like, it can't be. They had to both and. How do we both create, both build, and do it here? What needs to change structurally in order for us to be able to do this? How do we drain the swamp? How do we refortify or create a barrier that is, how do both and? George Lucas creating the Star Wars space cowboy epic opera thing that he wanted to do. It's never been done before. Many of the things that he created in order for Star Wars to be, and I'm speaking of the original fourth film, he created new ideas and ways of filmmaking and special effects, which is why or how Industrial Lights and Magic was birthed from, because they completely revolutionized filmmaking, both and. So how do we shift from thinking either black and white, linear, binary terms, either or, right and wrong, good, bad, and move into the realm of gray, where there's light, dark, and there's good, bad, and right, wrong, and light, dark, and up, down, and masculine, feminine, and male, female, and. How do we enter into the space of the Trinity, the space of it's not either or, it's both and? We're going to talk about this later this month as well, the third way. How do we engage and enter into a space of the concept of Janusian thinking created by psychiatrist and, dare I say, philosopher Albert Ruthenberg, created this idea named after the Greek god who, as you see in the image, had two faces, Janus The Roman God, sorry, I said Greek, because they share stuff. The Roman God of transitions, of duality, of time, beginnings and endings, entries and exits, gateways and doorways. And he created this, or coalesced this idea of the paradox mindset to encourage people to move in a path of creative problem solving. No longer thinking of obstructions as obstructions, but obstructions as possible solutions. Simply thinking of an obstruction, thinking of a problem as something other than a problem, begins to open the gates of creative problem solving, solution finding, healing, etc. Because we begin to open ourselves up to there's a multitude of ways to get from point A to point B. There's a multitude of ways to think about whatever it is we are thinking about. There's a multitude of possible roads and perspectives that get us from the current collective consciousness to a world that works for all as the new collective consciousness. So we're encouraged to step into this paradox mindset, to be able to hold the space for things that seem to be opposite. In the absolute, I am absolutely healthy and well. But what happens when I'm experiencing COVID or cancer or depression? How can I be whole, perfect, and complete, and yet I don't feel that way? Can both of these ideas be held in the same space, in the same consciousness, in the same body, in the same life experience? Both and, not either or. Can I grieve and still feel joy? Both and. Can I be sad and? Stepping into the paradox mindset gives us a completely new palette of flexibility in how we show up in this thing called life. How, when we're living the science of mind and spirit, from this idea of the paradox mindset, we are given the freedom to say we understand that there is oneness, and we see where this experience of oneness is not what people are experiencing, what they're feeling. They feel anything but connected and unified. They feel lonely. They feel ostracized. They feel bullied. They feel tormented. They feel all kinds of things, abused. But there's oneness. There's only God. This unity. And as we said before, God is love. Huh? Huh? I'm confused. Huh? What? The paradox mindset gives us the space to stand in and say, where and how do both of these things exist within the individual, within the collective, and what is ours to do? How do we heal this brokenness so that the oneness, the absolute wholeness, perfection, and completeness is what people experience, even while there are ebbs and flows where I know that I am whole, perfect, and complete, even when I am not feeling that way. I am driving, and right now I made the wrong turn and I'm lost, and yet I know that there is an unlost. There is a path somewhere to getting me back to where I am intending to go, getting me back to home, getting me back to wherever. Even though right now I'm not there, and even though right now, oh, where is the highway? Oh, where could it be? Right now I'm driving in circles trying to figure out where's the gas station so I can ask for directions. I'm lost. But I can't be lost. I'm still on earth. That means some way, shape, or form. I didn't just make a turn and I ended up on some foreign planet. I'm still on earth. If I'm still on earth, then there's still a North Pole, South Pole, there's still a compass, there's still directions, there's still a way to find my way back to where it is I desire to be. Oneness, God consciousness, love. Even though this is what I feel, lost, I know there is a route. I know there is a path. I know there is a way back to the truth of my being, both and. Now, one of the things they say here, a paradox mindset allows us the freedom to simultaneously hold both of these ideas in our minds without the need to solve a problem. Now, hold on that thought, because many things we don't need to solve a problem. Oftentimes, because of our culture, because of colonization as a consciousness, the answer is more important than the question. And I would challenge us to say the question is more important than the answer. So we don't need to solve a problem. By asking the question and elevating how we're asking and asking what we're asking and why we're asking what we're asking, the answer automatically appears without the need to seek it, without the need to solve it. When you do the steps, the answer shows up. I don't need to search for 2 plus 2 equals 4. I don't need to search for 4. If I understand 2 and I understand plus and I understand the other 2 and I understand the equal and I ask the question, what is 2? What is plus? What is 2? What is equal? And then I understand the steps and move through the steps, the 4 will automatically show up as a natural byproduct of asking the question. Now, it goes on to say, in fact, by embracing the paradox, we realize that there is no problem to solve at all. In the absolute, yes, there is no problem to solve. Yes, and, both and, because there is a problem: poverty, racism, toxic patriarchy. These are problems. These are non-life affirming expressions of consciousness. Now, we don't need to solve, once again, as what do we say in CSL, Science, Mind, and Spirit? There is nothing that needs to be healed or solved, only truth to be revealed. So we recognize what the problem is. We need not solve it. We bring truth to it, and it is healed by default. Yet we treat and move our feet. So it doesn't resolve itself. You don't get 4 simply by putting a 2 plus 2 equals on paper and then somehow the 4 magically materializes. There has to be work through the process, thinking through the process, action through the process. But we understand that we are not forcing our will to solve or fix anything. We are using our spiritual practices and what it means to be a 21st century New Thought Good Samaritan and allowing our life affirming faith and love, intention to show up as action. Dr. Holmes says, we need to develop a good natured flexibility. Nature demands this. For if the tree did not bend before the wind, the tree would break. We are apt to hold our thoughts so static that it finally becomes a habit which destroys not only our mental happiness, but also our spiritual influx. When we are no longer open at the top, we destroy our mental happiness and joy and love, as well as the influx, inflow, outflux, and outflow of spirit. We deny it full access as us because we're no longer open to it. We're no longer open to the possibilities because we have collapsed. There is only one way. Is this not what many Christian fundamentalists and Muslim fundamentalists and Hebrew Jewish fundamentalists, is this not the same thing that they do as a fundamentalist paradigm? Our way is the only right way. All other ways are evil, satanic, wrong, heading you toward damnation and hellfire or some version of. They're no longer open at the top. But when you engage, even those, because I have met radically inclusive Muslims and Jews and Christians who are open at the top within their faith to a greater evolving consciousness because they question, because they are willing to deconstruct, because they are willing to do a deeper exegesis of their own theology to be more inclusive. I recently heard, and I can't think of their names right now other than their first names, Chris and I believe Malcolm. They were discussing the idea of, instead of thinking of it as the kingdom of God, because kingdom in and of itself represents authority over another, dominion over another. There's the kingdom, the king, the ruler, and the subjects. That is not equality. And they said a more evolved way, a more expansive way of thinking about this is the kingdom of God. Kin, family, the connectedness of all of us within the scope of God. It's that. When we are willing to be open at the top and explore, then we increase our mental happiness, our joy, our love, and the influx and inflow and outflow of the divine as us. Breathe. So years ago, when I was first exposed to the artwork of M.C. Escher, immediately my mind went to, this is fascinating art, because a lot of, if not all of his art deals with some form of paradox. How can this be demons and angels together at the same time? And when you phase out, you may not even see one or the other because it blends. At what point do the little alligators become real alligators, become drawn alligators? How can hands draw themselves? Which staircase is up or down? I'm disoriented in which way is this not a lot of how just the metaphysics of his art? Are there not times in our lives where we can't discern up from down, left from right? And we are invited to simply sit in the mystery of both and. Both and. I can be in a room where it's both up, down, left, right, side, and diagonal. I can enjoy artwork that shows something that, in an odd way, hands drawing hands. Are we not God drawing, creating this thing we call life? Our lives, individual, within the scope of there is only one life, and that life is God. So within life, capital L-I-F-E, there are many lives of each individual within the one. Okay. I almost got a headache just thinking about that. So keep in mind, you are oneness, and you are infinite, and you are the universe, and you are God, and you are an individual. You are finite. you are a human being, and you are a separate person. Both and. You are oneness and you are an individualized expression of that oneness. You are the infinite in expression as this finite. And finite can be expressed in a variety of ways, from birth to death, a finite amount of time in this expression. Finite as from the top of your head to the soles of your feet, a certain height, finite, a certain arm expansion from one end to the other. We're finite in a variety of ways, finite in the number of bones we have, the number of organs we have, finite. Both and though, because we are the infinite expressing as. We are the universe and we are humans being the universe in expression. Right? We are both and. So the paradox, stepping into the space of the paradox mindset, says, what does it look like for me to live both of these? The both and, not the either or, the both and. What does that look like? How does it show up in my life? How does it show up when I'm having a difficult time with my finances? How does it show up when I'm having a difficult time with my health? How does it show up when I'm having a difficult time with political corruption? How does this show up when? Fill in the blank. Because we are invited to recognize there is an ever moving ebb and flow of truth, both and, not either or. Dr. Holmes says, what we must avoid, however, is the confusion which arises from a belief in final revelations. From that belief, from the belief that all truth is at last discovered. We've arrived. There is no more else. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. No more else. Nowhere else. We're done. Or that one person or some system of thought has discovered the final last word on this is the answer. This is what God is. This is who God is. This is what heaven is. This is what hell is. This is it. We're done. There's nothing else that we need to ask or figure out. We're done. There are no finalities in any science, in any philosophy, or in any religion. There are no finalities. We need to say that again. There are no finalities. Why else be open at the top? Because we are the expression of that which is ever evolving consciousness. And if it is ever evolving consciousness, it is the infinite, then how can it have an end? Even this thing called our own bodies. Now, remember, I said we were finite. But do we realize that there is an ever shifting, moving series of things happening all at the same time? There is no finality to the body, even though the body is finite. The body is ever shifting and moving and changing. We change in height, we change in weight, we change in various chemical things going through our body, our digestion, our elimination. It's always the breath. There's always movement, always change. Even within this finite form, there is an infinite number of processes happening all the time. And it's without end. Because even matter can be neither created nor destroyed. So even when this is done, my life in this form is done. And whether I'm buried or cremated, the body will still continue to go through changes, even after. Even if it's cremains, are there not still atoms and molecules and things moving and bouncing? There is still movement of energy, even within this finite dust that once was a body. There are no finalities. So let's ask the questions. Let's go in and ask the questions. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the mathematical, algebraic and calculitic. But if I were to say, let's solve for X and Y, we understand. Once again, it's math. We understand how to do this. But I want us to explore, rather than solving for X, Y with this as the equation, I want us to solve for X, Y, thinking about we're solving for a world that works for all. We're solving for a world of peace and unity and harmony. We are solving for a world where science of mind and spirit, what we are practicing, is assisting us in this process. Now, we have to subtract, we have to remove things like hate. And once again, we're not trying to fix the problem, because when we do one thing, the other things automatically take care of themselves. So what are we invited to do to shift the consciousness so there is no more hate? There is no more othering, us versus them. And there is no more structural oppression. Because when we do this, when we engage our spiritual practices and we heal the variety of things to be healed by bringing truth as an action, then we manifest and create the beloved community. We manifest and create a world that works for all. But are we asking the right questions to get there? On any given day, are we asking the right questions? Just one question, like right off the bat. What does it mean, the world that works for all? What does that even mean? What does that look like? Let's start there. Can we ask the questions from there, where one question becomes an answer, becomes another question, becomes an answer, becomes another question, becomes another question, becomes another question, and we sit in the question until such time as there it is. There it is. And then we create it. Robert Ringer said, question everything. He sounds like my dad, because Charles taught me the exact same thing. Question everything, even if it represents generations of conventional or traditional wisdom. Or as Don Miguel Ruiz would say, generations of domestication. Question it. Question why do zippers zip up to close instead of zipping down to close? Why do shoes have shoelaces? Question everything. Why is the sky blue? Why is grass green? Why is the Bible used as a weapon? Why are so many people opposed to the Barbie movie? Ask questions. Question everything, even when it pushes against the confines and the barrier of traditional generations, conventional generations of whatever that thought form is, whatever that belief is, whatever that paradigm is. Question everything. Now, the thing is, culturally, we give ourselves permission to ask questions in certain venues, a job interview, within a courtroom, within a classroom. A reporter can ask questions. And I want us to get to the point where we ask questions everywhere. Ask questions in church, ask questions at home, ask questions of friends in the bar. If you go to a bar or a restaurant, ask questions. Ask questions. Richard Feynman says, I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. Years ago, I remember being in many a Christian church where I was taught, told, scolded. You don't ask questions. You don't question God. But the Bible, you don't question God. And what they were saying is, you don't question me. I'm the teacher. I'm the minister. I'm the reverend. I'm the whatever, the expert. You don't question me. Because the Bible says, question. It says ask questions. If you're not sure, like there's this passage where it says, if you're not sure if something is of God or of the devil, question. Ask. God is big enough to ask questions of, to challenge. So think about where in our world we are taught or conditioned to not ask questions and then push and ask questions. Be like MacGyver and say, it's a stylus, but what else can it be used for? Be like the CSI, one of Tracy's, it was actually both of our, one of our favorite television shows is CSI Las Vegas. And the idea is this is what you see, but question what you see, question what you find. In essence, we are being invited to be like New Thought Sherlock Holmes. Don't just question through the magnifying glass, question through consciousness. Question the paradigms, question the beliefs, ask questions of everything and everyone. Dr. Holmes says the riddle of the universe is a paradox. The question is its own answer. For the mind that asks the question is also the mind that answers it. The mind that asks the question. See, and I've said this many times. If there were no answer, there would be no question. The only reason I can question whatever it is I'm questioning is because somewhere there is already the response to that. An old Chinese quote, many people ask questions to which they already know the answers. We already know the answers. They're already somewhere within the isness and allness of our individual consciousness and that which is the consciousness of God. There's only one mind, and that mind is our mind. And so the moment we pose a question, somewhere in the one mind there is this infinite wisdom and infinite intelligence that has the answer. Are we open at the top to receive the answer? Because the question is its own answer, for the mind that asks the question is also the mind that has the answer for it. Breathe. Because we're going to do I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of a Zen koan, or some will say koan. It's the idea of questions or stories or parables that a Zen master would give to spark enlightenment in the student. Today we're going to talk about Shujan's 3 verses. Shujan instructed his assembly, and he said to them, if you attain the first verse, then you will be the teacher of Buddhas and patriarchs. Yet, if you attain the second verse, you will be the teacher of heaven and humankind. Now, if you attain the third verse, you cannot even save yourself. To which a monk asked, which verse did you, your reverence, attain? Shujan replies, the moon is set at midnight. I walk alone through the marketplace of the city. Excuse me, Master, I don't know if you heard my question. My question was, of the 3 verses you mentioned, which verse have you attained? I said, the moon is set at midnight. I walk alone through the marketplace of the city. Did y'all hear me ask him the question? You heard my question. What is he? Therein lies the paradox. Because he's answering his question, even though he doesn't appear to be answering the question. Huh? Huh? So let's sit with, simply reread this, screen captured, or come back after and, get to this part of the recording. What is this teaching? What is this informing? What is this sparking in terms of cracking open at the top so that we may attain enlightenment? Exactly. The moon is set at midnight. I walk alone through the marketplace. Yes. Okay. Peter Abelard says the master key of knowledge is indeed a persistent and frequent questioning. Are you persistent and frequent in the questions that you ask? The who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the which, the how. What is a world that works for all? How does the world work for all? What's needed for it to work for all? Etc. How do we question everything? What is God? Why do I believe that that's God? What was I taught that God was? When did I change my mind? Am I invited to change my mind yet again? In what way might I change my mind? Are you familiar with the television show Inside the Actors Studio? It's one of my favorite. Long before I even, got involved in acting, it was a favorite show of mine. And at the end of every show, this gentleman would ask questions, a variety of questions. What is your favorite word? Etc. Now, I want us to feel free to go through and ask yourself these questions, but I want us to move through, because we're talking about question everything and how does this apply to us? Sir Francis Bacon says a prudent question is one half of wisdom. A prudent or an effective question. See, sometimes we ask why for something where the why is the wrong question. It's the less effective question to ask, because even when we get the answer, it doesn't satisfy the reason we asked why in the first place. So an effective question is one half of wisdom. The other half of wisdom would be putting it into action. So as Lipton would ask his questions, let's go back inside the actor's studio. Let's go inside the minister's studio with Reverend Dr. Ray, where he asked, what is your concept of God? What is faith? What are you energized by? What energizes you? Clearly a typo. What are you energized by, or what energizes you, etc. Simply asking these questions gives us the space to arrive at answers that we can then embody and improve the quality of our individual lives and collective. Confucius says, the one who knows all the answers has not been asked all the questions. Think about people who claim to know all the answers. Then clearly they have not been asked all the questions. We are invited and encouraged to be in the space and the energy of asking questions, which is very different from needing or even wanting answers. Simply ask. Be in the mystery, be in the unknown. Ask and also be comfortable with the response. I don't know. I don't need to know. I simply ask. This week's affirmation declaration, I will say it first, and if it resonates with you, say it with me on our second go round. I embrace a paradox mindset in everything I do. Together. I embrace a paradox mindset in everything I do. And so it is. This week's questions. In what areas of your life do you tend to not ask questions because of some level of discomfort? In what areas of your life is it easy to embrace a paradox mindset? In what areas is it difficult to embrace this mindset? How have you, in your life, wherever, in the past, in the present, wherever, how have you used the concept of Janusian thinking to solve a problem? And if you haven't used Janusian thinking ever, how might you begin to? What are some ways that a paradox mindset can help us to become more welcoming to people in our community? And lastly, how can you embrace a wider range of perspectives than the ones you typically know now or have now, right? And what is the benefit of embracing a wider range of perspectives? How does that benefit you? Breathe as we enter into that space of prayer, recognizing the isness and allness of the one mind, the one life, the thing itself, God. Right here, right where each of us is, God. Our thoughts, God. Our actions, our feelings, our words, all that we are and could ever be, God. And recognizing this thing, this power, this presence, this divine source, God, as all that we are, why would we not remain open at the top? Why would we not question in order to evolve, question in order to grow, question in order to heal, question in order to be more of the embodiment of God? Because simply by asking the question, if God is and I am, then what? If God is love and I am love, then what? If God is, if Ernest Holmes said, whatever is true about God is true about me, do I believe that? Question. Because if God is infinite wisdom and I am that, and I have access to this infinitude of wisdom, then what? By asking the questions we grow, by asking the questions we heal, by asking the questions we shift the collective consciousness, a world that works for all, equity, justice, compassion, unity. So we ask, and the universe responds because the law always says yes. So it is already saying yes to our questions. Yes, ask more. Yes, ask differently. Yes, ask. Because in the asking is the answer, and in the answer is the manifestation, and in the manifestation is the experience. Both and. We breathe, knowing that this prayer, this treatment, this service, this idea of the paradox mindset, this idea of evolving consciousness already is. It's already our truth, already anchored and grounded and steeped in principle, right here and right now. It is answered prayer, and so it is. Namaste, blessings, much love and appreciation. See you over in the Zoom room.